Good morning, what's happening? So, today's episode of Throttle Therapy is ever slightly different. So I've got two bikes in the back of the van. One is my BMW, the other one is going to be a surprise until we get down to Superbike Factory, where we're having a look at a third bike today. And the basic premise of the video is, has modern day motorcycle electronics ruined motorbike riding? And it's something that a lot of people are very strongly opinionated on. People like myself who grew up on bikes with no ABS, no traction, no safety features, no electronics, will say maybe it has. And then there's people who have only rode new bikes who are advocates for the electronics and say, do you know what, no, I quite like the electronics because of how it keeps me safe on the road. I can have fun, I can go faster, everything in between. So we're taking out three bikes, one from 2007, 2015 and a 2024. I'm going to grab my favourite can of energy drink and then we're going to head down with Dom riding next to us on the way down to Superbike Factory. So I'll see you when we get there.
No, bike.
That's happening all right, yeah? There we go, so welcome to Superbike Factory at Milton Keynes. Now the cat is out the bag. You can see to my right hand side we've got the 2007 Yamaha R1, which of course happens to be my first ever superbike for the early viewers of the channel. We've then got my current bike for the road, which is the 2015 S1000RR Gen 3. And then to my left hand side we have the 2024 Ducati Hypermotard. Now, as much as it's not a superbike, it boasts a huge amount of electronics and safety features, from stability to braking to anti-wheelie, you name it, it's got it, which we'll get onto further down this video. Now let's talk the 2007 R1. So starting off from its previous model from the 5VY, this is now an inline 4 16 valve from the previous where we used to have 5 per cylinder. In terms of its power output, we're talking 180 brake horsepower at 12,500 RPM. Now this is a claimed figure with 189 horsepower from the Ram air intake, which was an upgrade from the predecessor. Now in terms of its weight, we're talking 390 pounds, or for the UK people's 177 kilo. So it's a very light superbike in all fairness, especially considering its age. Now let's talk electronics and safety features. This bike has a start button and a steering damper. That is it. There is nothing else on this bike that keeps you safe apart from yourself and your ability. This is as raw as it gets when it comes to superbikes. Now I was fortunate enough to be growing up on these sorts of bikes. This was the first proper bike I had of the superbike generation, and it really is a case of, it is you, the bike, and that is it. If you stay on this bike, it's down to you. There's no electronics to save you, there's no ABS, there's no traction. So any mistake you make, it's not going to be forgiven. And now we move on to the 2015 S1000RR, the bike of the hour, which is my current road bike. And let's talk some stats and figures. So a claimed 13,500 RPM at 199 brake horsepower from an inline 4. Upgraded internals, improved mid-range torque from its previous model, the Gen 2, a full ride-by-wire system and dynamic traction control, ABS, standard traction control, slide control, wheelie control, and a multiple set of riding modes, from rain mode all the way through to custom, which you can fully customize all of the modes within it. You can customize the engine braking, the ABS, the traction, the dynamic traction. There's so much you can fully customize with this bike. You can really tailor it to your own riding. Now, something that was game changing with this bike in 2015 is it had Gear Shift Assist Pro, which was a clutchless up and down shift system. Now, it was a standard on many trims, but this was an absolute game changer in 2015. It wasn't a very common thing on many superbikes. Now, the 0 to 60 on this is 2.7 seconds, and it is still today one of the fastest production superbikes ever released. And last but not least, the 2024 Ducati Hypermotard. Now, of course, this is a bit of a standout from the other two. Obviously, it's not a super bike. It's kind of a cross between your off-road bike and your supermoto bike. It's perfect for those people who want to have fun, aren't too fussed in the top line speed, and just really want to enjoy what a bike has to truly offer. Now, what does it boast in terms of performance and electronics? So the bike itself has multiple different riding modes, from urban all the way through to sport and fully adjustable, including the throttle response, the dynamic traction control, the ABS and the engine braking. Now, Ducati's traction control, the DTC Evo, is adjustable, it's smooth, and it's finely tuned for either an aggressive or a casual riding style. So similar to the RR, you can fully customize the modes, how they perform and how they react based on your riding style and what you want to achieve. Now, the quick shifter on this, again, it's an up and down. Now, that is on the SP models and is optional on the base model. In terms of its safety, it has a 6-axis IMU as standard, which controls all the lean angle sensitive features. This, of course, will affect the cornering ABS, the traction, slide control. There's a heck of a lot that this will cover. Oh, there we go, taking it back out again. This feels ever so slightly weird. I do wonder how this is going to feel, seeing as I've not rode it in so long. This could be interesting. And as always, Dom, thank you for recording, because you're doing me a massive favour today, especially if you're taking a day off work. and you ain't even got a clue that I'm talking about here, and you're not going to see this until the video goes up. I'll tell you what I like about this though, you truly feel connected with the bike. You don't feel like a passenger, because you feel everything, the resistance with the throttle, just everything feels so much genuine and authentic. So, first impressions. Now I say first impressions, I used to own this, so I know this bike inside out. But how does it feel? What's it like to be on? What's it like to ride? Now, that's moving, but we're not getting anything in terms of the throttle. You've got to give it that bit more. It's a physical cable you're pulling. There's a little bit more resistance compared to a newer bike. So you guys who've only rode newer bikes will understand that you can literally do that and it will go. Whereas this, you've got to give it a little bit more. Now weight wise, it does feel heavy. Now this is because I'm used to the newer ones where they feel a little bit lower in terms of the weight distribution, the centre of gravity, the agility, everything comes into play. But it still feels like a proper superbike. This gives you more of a genuine feel of what a superbike, in my opinion, should be. A bit of resistance on the throttle. Slight pause there, speed van on the bridge. But yeah, this truly gives you a genuine superbike feel. Resistance on the throttle, the sound. This bike has such a true, raw, iconic and almost distinctive sound of what an inline 4 is from Yamaha. I mean, this was denoted from their World Superbike bike from 2007. So it's gonna have that. It's gonna have the ability to do things that, let's be honest, this bike will probably do more than you ever possibly could. And that's fine. That's what bikes should be. They should be able to do more than you can. But with all said and done, let's see what this bike's like in terms of its agility. That is good with the acceleration. Oh, it feels so agile, so agile. I think what I like, it doesn't just tip in. It doesn't tip in too fast. It's quite smooth the way it tips in, which is probably a good thing. That feels so good. Braking solid. But here's the thing. If you heavy brake like that on a new bike, the chances are the ABS will kick in. But like I was saying, this is not a bike with the electronics. This is a case of it is you, the throttle, and that is it. Feels good. Feels very good. So we are now coming to the business end of the ride of the R1. So what would I say in terms of its comfort? Do you know what? It's actually quite comfortable. For a big, older bike, this is very comfortable. Especially when it comes to super bikes. Okay, yes, it's got a bit of an aggressive stance with the bars and they're very much let's go fast, but it's a comfortable bike. So I'd have to give that a 7 out of 10 for the comfortability, especially when it comes to being a super bike of that generation. Power delivery, now this is where people are going to disagree with me. The power delivery I feel is a bit laxed on this bike. It's a delay. It really comes in at about 5.5, 6k, nothing before, and then it starts to die off around 10, 11k, which is expected. Especially when they're sort of ranged for that mid-range power delivery. Agility. Now this again is a bit of a tough one. So we're not pushing these bikes on the road in such a way that you're going to be throwing the maddest lean angle and getting your elbow down and all that good stuff. But again, for a bike of this age, it's so agile, like incredibly agile, which is, it's just strange. You just don't expect it of a bike that's nearly 20 years old. 18 if we're being specific. Overall, would I buy this super bike again? I think I probably would. It's fun. It's got enough agility to have fun, but it also has that flip side where if you don't respect it, it's going to bite back. And people know I've had this bike previously, and it did bite back quite hard. But again, it's all part of a super bike and how they handle and all that good stuff. But no, I probably would buy this bike again. It's a great super bike for people who understand bikes, how they work, and they respect them. It's just a breath of fresh air. It's raw, it's genuine, it's such a good bike. So with that, let's get ourselves back down to Superbike Factory. Let's go pick up the one and the only, the Double R. And now, the faithful Double R. Which, yes, I know you guys know already. You know how it handles, how it performs, what you can and can't do with it, or at least from my point of view anyway. But it's still nice to see the gradual progression from 2007 through. So again, let's talk facts on this bike. So we're 199 brake horsepower as standard. Now that is crank figures. This, for example, has been mapped to Dave Woods. So this is 196 at the wheel. So the brake horsepower is just insane off of a bike of this stature. This is 2015, so this is where the electronics started to come into play. So what does that mean? Throttle. There is no physical cable that runs through. So the throttle is just that bit better. There's no resistance, it's smoother, it's instant power delivery. Now following on from the throttle, let's talk about the upgrades. So this is 4 kilos lighter than the previous model. It's a slightly longer wheelbase, upgraded cams, air intake, all for that extra bit of brake horsepower for the bike. Now in terms of the performance, the weight distribution of this bike for me, in my opinion, feels a lot lower down. So the centre of gravity is lower, it makes it a lot easier, more nimble in the corners, and it makes sense. I mean, this bike is literally the daddy of the old school HP4, the Gen 2, which, if we're being honest, this bike is literally the Gen 2 with a little bit more about it. It was BMW's race bike, and this is still a heavily focused track race bike. Now, as much as the R1 of course is, this takes it a little step further because of the electronic improvements, because of the improvements in terms of performance, research, development. Everything comes into place. They're always going to get that little bit better when it comes to true race bikes. So let's talk electronics. So mine's off, however, ABS. So what is ABS? Essentially, if you hammer on the front brake, you're not going to do that. You're not going to go up in the air and the back end's going to overtake the front. The ABS basically squeezes the brake and lets go for you. Still enables you to be in control of the bike and, more importantly, steer. So that's exactly how ABS works. Now the traction control on this is fully adjustable, same as the ABS, but the traction control works in such a way that if the rear wheel starts to slip, it will kick it back and go, nope, don't slip, we need to sort this out. Works very similar to ABS in some respects, with turning and slowing it down and keeping you on the bike, but obviously it's a separate safety feature, so there is that as well. Now you've got dynamic traction control, which essentially it relies on the data fed back from the ECU to change what happens with the bike in terms of the wheel spinning, the brakes, the lean angle. Everything comes into play and it looks after you. It puts you first. Which, like I say, for superbikes, this was that sort of 2015 era, from I'd say 2012 to 2015. That was when the electronics really started to come into play to try and keep you safe on the bike. This is where they wanted it to be feasible for new riders to jump on superbikes, which up until then, it wasn't really feasible. You could not throw an inexperienced new rider on an old school bike. It's just fact. There's no opinion about it, you just couldn't. Unless you're one of these people who grew up with it, you can't do it. You just can't. If you're a brand new rider, you could never jump on a superbike straight away. Of course there's going to be exceptions to that, but the general consensus is there is no way on God's green earth you'd be able to do that. It's not safe, it's not realistic. These bikes are focused on how fast can I go from A to B, how fast can I go from lap 1 through to lap 2. And it's all about that progression of speed. And so let's talk agility. How does this bike feel? Now you can see there we've got the lean angle degree, so it's telling us exactly what we're doing. So pretty chilled ride. We've got 36 left and 18 right. Now these roundabouts aren't exactly amazing, I can't lie. Oh, a little wobble there. But this bike, even just off that 44 degree right, now that's more than enough for the road. More than enough. This bike just handles incredibly well, and to be honest, probably better than most bikes you'll get out there. But again, this is track focused, this bike. This is not a road focused bike, this is a track focused bike, and it's easy to tell, really easy to tell, and that's what I love about it. It's built for purpose, and it absolutely nails it. It nails its purpose. It just feels weightless. Once this bike's riding and you get up in the RPMs, it just feels absolutely weightless. You can throw it around. There's no worry about, oh, am I going to upset this bike? Okay, yes, you've got to be careful not to just roll off and lose traction on the back end, but again, this is where the electronics come in. If you want to be able to do that, you can stick it in the race mode, you can roll off the throttle, and it will keep you safe.
You stick it in rain mode, it does even more than that. It restricts the brake horsepower to I think 140, around there. It does restrict it, again to keep you safe. It puts the traction control at the highest, the ABS on at the highest. It does everything possible to keep you on this seat. And again, do I think that's a bad thing? No, I really don't. I think it makes you a bit of a lazy rider and you can lose a bit of respect for bikes, but as long as you maintain the respect, focus and the concentration, I think this bike, in my opinion, is probably the best superbike to ride. And that's going to be incredibly controversial, but I truly believe that. Of all the bikes I've been on, from the R1 to the ZX10, I've not been fortunate enough to go on the Ducatis, but this bike is just insane. For me, it's the perfect balance of electronics to keep you safe, but with enough raw power and feel to let you enjoy what a superbike should be about, which is to throw it around, go fast, get the mad lean angle, and just enjoy it. So overall, what do I think? Knowing what I know now, would I buy this bike again? In a heartbeat. Truthfully, I love this bike that much that I wouldn't say desperate, but I'm going to continuously keep a lookout to see if I can get one of these for track, because they're so agile, nimble, comfortable and so easy to control. They're just, for me, they're in a world of their own. So the electronics at this point hasn't ruined anything, it's just kept you safer. And the reality is, the only time that you're going to come off on something like that is through loss of respect or massive loss of concentration. So now the final bike in today's video we're going back to Superbike Factory to get is the 2024 Ducati Hypermotard, which I'm actually really excited to ride. Obviously with it being single cylinder, it's going to be a heck of a lot more torquey. It's going to have a lot of weight transfer, I think, but we'll get back to Superbike Factory and we'll see how we get on. And now, last but not least, the Ducati, which in fairness, out of all three of them, I'm actually most excited to ride. I think it's going to be totally different to what I've been used to with inline fours, because I've pretty much only ridden inline fours with exception to my old R7. This will be interesting to say the least. The height, the brakes, the electronics, and I'm leaving all the electronics on this one. This actually just looks like a bit of fun. Right, this is a tall bike. Very tall. Okay, here we go. So we're going to put this in, let's put it in urban, stick it in urban mode. I want to see how this handles. Now this is going to be interesting, single cylinder. I'm looking forward to this. I think it obviously goes without saying, a massive thank you for Superbike Factory for letting us take these out, because this is not something that we always get to do. Yeah, it's a heck of a lot of travel when you hit the brake. So that'll be interesting to see how this feels. And as you can see, this is for me a tiptoe bike. This is not a flat foot. I'm not exactly the smallest of guys, I'm not exactly the tallest. So let's have a look at the riding modes then. So what have we got? We've got wet, sport, road and urban. I'm going to leave it on urban to start with. I want to see how that plays. And then we'll give it a couple of little pulls, see what it's like on the acceleration, the feel, throttle response. Annoyingly, I can't think of anywhere else to put this. Yes, I can still see before people start panicking, going, oh, you can't see anything. Fog light as well, but that's different. No, there's no warning about anything to do with fuel or anything. Only doing like 5 or 6 miles will be fine. Now this is a totally different feel riding. I'm already sat so upright. A lot of travel when you hit the front brake. Ah, so it's almost like it gives you throttle. So if you look on the rev range, I don't know if you'll see it, as soon as you start letting off the clutch, it gives you revs in first gear. What I'm going to put this into road mode. We are now in road mode. Nice, this feels very comfortable to ride. Very comfortable. Now I cannot begin to explain how comfortable this bike is. This is so comfy to ride. Obviously it's a totally different dynamic in comparison to the super bikes, but even if you look at sport bikes, this is incredibly comfortable. So how do I feel on it? I mean, for starters, the weight is it's perfect. The transfer of the weight is just, it's so refreshing. Instead of being so low down and aggressive, it's quite a nice upright bike that, in fairness, has still got a nice bit of agility. It doesn't feel awful. Now I imagine that's in the nature of the bike, is to be nice and easy to turn it in, especially as it's that sort of hybrid between your off-road bike and your sort of crosser style, but with a supermoto vibe. I like it, I like this a lot. So let's talk electronics. So ABS, so this has got multiple stages of ABS and traction control. It's Ducati's own version, which the name escapes me, but essentially it relies on the data from the brain of the bike basically to take on the lean angle, the throttle response, the braking, everything into consideration in such a way that it tries to keep you on. And it's, again, it just shows the progression and the development of the electronics from the old school bikes which had nothing through to now, where these bikes are designed in such a way that it tries to keep you upright at all times. Now this has got a feature called slide by braking, which I'm not going to be trying whilst I'm on this bike today, but essentially what it does is it keeps you in the corner when you're braking. It keeps you in such a position that it allows you to back it in, which is actually a pretty cool feature. Very cool feature. Now, that's going to be really hard to get across in camera then. When I come around the corner then and added the throttle, just to see how it would twitch, it twitched for not even a tenth of a second and just stiffened the bike up a little bit to bring me back up to level plane. Old school bikes, if you did that, it would not stop you. The rear wheel would continue to spin, and that's where you'd get spat off. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. It almost puts it in a position that new riders could jump straight on a bike like this, or even a brand new superbike with similar technology, and be absolutely safe in what they're doing. And I think it's a wicked little feature. Now there's going to be so much on this bike that I'm not going to be able to test because we just don't have the time to do it. But it just feels so smooth and comfortable, and I can't say anything bad about this bike so far. Do you know what? I absolutely love this bike. Throttle, there you go, straight back up again. It doesn't want to kick out. I really like that. I really like that. Okay, there's an element that you could become lazy with it, but that just does feel great. When I was banked over and snapped the throttle, it stood me up. So rather than letting the rear wheel spin, it stood the bike back up, and then I went to snap it to see if the front wheel would lift, and straight away the light was flashing to go, no, you can't do that. And it keeps you upright. Clever bike. I don't actually know how much fuel this takes. Thank you. Cheers. Hiya mate, right?
I was about to say, you've had a good fucking skid in them, haven't you?
Yeah, I've had a few, mate.
How you doing, all right?
Yeah, good man. Mate, it's so good. But yeah, so Sean, Dom.
How you doing? How you doing, mate? Yeah, not too bad.
I'll catch you in a bit.
Good to see you, John.
You too, bud. So again, we're in wet mode now, so in theory if we come round and we snap, nothing. If we snap to lift, it doesn't want you to do it. It will not allow you to do it. We change this, change the riding mode, we go into sport, and there we go, no ABS, and you're going to struggle to see that on the camera. However, the back end lifted ever so slightly and just kicked out to the side, which again, if you're comfortable with this sort of thing and you can turn the electronics down a little bit, it will let you still have fun. So we're going to put this back in wet mode and really try and showcase the electronics and how they impact the bike. Start to give it, and it doesn't want you to do it. It will cut it out to try and stand you back up. So if we come round to snap, and again there, rolls off the throttle slightly, just what I feel like taps the rear brake and just straightens you up. It won't let it lift out of the corner. So with the wet mode on, if this was to slide, snap, nothing, straight up, slide, nothing, straight up. We'll try once more, we'll lock that rear, absolutely nothing at all. And you can see there, icons popped up, and that's it. It's not allowing us to do it, which again I don't think is a bad thing at all. But with that said, now we seem to have showcased the electronics and how it works, we're going to do a little U-turn. We're going to head back to Superbike Factory, and that is going to be us on the 2024 Ducati Hypermotard. Now for the one question that this video started on. Has modern day electronics ruined motorcycle riding? And my opinion is...
So after taking all three of them out, let's have a little bit of a recap. So, number one, the 2007 R1, which is as bare bones as it can possibly get, especially in comparison to these three bikes. It's a start button, yourself, your ability, and that's it. That is as simple as it comes, and that's where you've got to learn to respect what you're on and also trust a lot in your ability, because the only thing that's going to go wrong is your input into the bike. So that's where you become quite vulnerable with it. But I quite like that, because it teaches you respect, control, everything you could possibly need to get onto a superbike with the correct mindset. Then we move on 10 years later, or 8 years specifically, to the S1000RR, which is where the first introduction of some really high-end electronics come into play. You're talking anti-wheelie, ABS, traction, dynamic traction control, everything that comes into play with a modern day motorcycle to not only keep you safe, but also help you go faster, especially when it's in a track focused environment. And then we move on lastly to the Ducati, which yes, it's a totally different segment from the two Superbikes, but it's so incredibly electronics focused. You see from the ride-on, we've got the road where you're in rain mode, where it's so intrusive, there's no point in having it on. Although if it is hammering it down, then yes, of course, it's going to come into its own. And then we flip it into the sport mode, where it basically turns everything off. It's the difference between the ABS kicking in or the rear wheel lifting. The difference between the traction kicking in or backing it into a corner and really having some fun with the bikes. The overall consensus, has modern day electronics killed motorcycle riding? In my honest opinion, it hasn't. I genuinely think all it's done is giving you the option to go, I want to be wrapped up in cotton wool, but I want to go faster and be safe while I'm doing it, versus no, I'm in the correct headspace, I'm going to be mature and respectful about my ability and the bike's ability to do what it can do and go out and enjoy them for what they're built for. Now, although this is my opinion, everyone's going to have a different opinion, and I'd love nothing more than for you guys, if you've enjoyed the video, not only to drop a like and a subscribe, but to drop a comment below to let me know your opinion on modern day motorcycle electronics and if it has or hasn't changed. Aside from that, thank you guys very much for watching, and the only thing I'll leave you with is, if you're going to jump on a bike like these, whether it's got electronics or not, be respectful the entire time, because the second you're not respectful is the second it bites you in the backside. Thank you very much for watching, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Mate, insane. You're just chilling, it's like a cruiser. In terms of actually going out on it, mate, the seat's comfy. The seat is comfy. It's got a nice load of a load of padding in there. It doesn't get hot, like it doesn't get hot at all. When you're sat on it upright, you're like that. Obviously your legs are out, so you're relaxed. Everything's just easy. When you're going around the corner, you're just that. There's no like body hanging, it's just tip the bar, send it in. Mate, it's bang on. It's so good. I'd say, out of the three of them, that's the most capable. Beamer's the most capable. That makes you feel the most connected. That is the most fun.